So it may be online now, but COVID-19 isn't going to stop us. Welcome to the 2000 AD Thought Bubble Art Talent Search for 2020. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Shame we're not in Harrogate, which is words I thought I'd never say, but that doesn't mean that we can't have some fun. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome the judges for this panel, starting off with Matt Disraeli Brooker. Say hello, Matt.
Hello, Matt.
John McCrea.
Hello there.
And all the way from the States, on the very eve of destruction, Chris Burnham.
Hello.
So yes, we're all probably slightly hysterical because we're recording this on election day. So this will be fun. This will be fun. Now, thanks so much, guys, for agreeing to judge this panel. The art competitions at Thor will always a highlight for not just for those taking part, but I based on feedback, you know, everyone loves seeing what different people have brought to the competition. So for those watching who've never actually been to or heard the panels from Thought Bubble, every year we give would-be artists and would-be writers the opportunity to work for 2000 AD. And in case of artists, we asked them to draw a sample script. And in this case, it was one written and drawn by Chris Burnham. So they had to draw this, send it in, and the guys are now going to tear these entries apart and give advice. And then when they've done that, they'll choose a winner. And that winner goes on to actual paid work with 2000 AD. It's the best prize in comics. He says, I work in marketing. Without much further ado, let's start off in first name alphabetical order with Carl Sperling. Now, Chris, just as we start this, tell us a little bit about the strip that you did and what the story is about.
Yeah, so I think I was watching a documentary about these knuckleheads that believe that the Earth is flat, and I was just thinking to myself, what if it was true? Like, I just want to see what that actually looks like. Like, if that idiot actually raised the money to go to Antarctica and go on a mission, what would actually happen? So that was the genesis of it. And then hopefully this story gets more and more ridiculous every time you turn the page and just gets bigger and crazier and more difficult to draw as the story goes on.
I mean, I was quite pleased when I saw that Matt Smith, the editor, had chosen this one, because it's I mean, it's only 4 pages. It's quite a condensed Future Shock, very much in the traditional style of Future Shocks as well, where you've got that little sting in the tail, but there's lots of ridiculous concepts kind of packed into 4 pages. Looking at Carl's pages, which will be up on the screen for people watching at home, Chris, what's the first thing that jumps out at you about how Carl has tackled your script?
I love the relatively open line style. I think it's great. He did a really nice job with the gray shading. Love how the pyramid really gets kind of techno organic. That I wrote in the script, and I kind of blew it in when I drew it myself. So I was very happy to see him do a much better job with it than I did. Great looking turtle. He's one of the only guys who actually draw the turtles from above, so you can actually see the flat Earth on the back of each of these turtles, which is awesome. He didn't, I will say, I called for the guy to have a United Nations patch on his shoulder. And if you pay attention, the UN logo basically looks like a flat Earth. So I was really hoping to get that connection made, that it looks the same. And he didn't fully nail the patch on the arm, so he gets demerits for that. But he did really nail the look of the Earth on the back of all these millions of turtles that he drew. Awesome. And he also really nailed the hollow Earth with all these lizard men in winter coats and stuff. Super cool. Yeah, very, very nice job.
This is a story that demands a lot of confidence with perspective, because you've got various different big, worm's eye view, you've got kind of God eye view kind of perspectives. Matt, I want to come to you next and talk a little bit about that. What's your feelings on how Carl has tackled this constant change of perspective?
You're right. I mean, the thing that strikes me about this, apart from what strikes me about all the 2000 AD art competition entries, which is, thank God I don't have to draw this, is you've got these tremendous problems of like scale and angle and trying to fit everything in. Now, what I think, oh God, I'm sorry, I've lost the view. Carl, yeah. What Carl's done tremendously well on this is actually handle the individual perspectives within the panels really terrifically. It's like in every one, you've got a sense of where you are, and you've got a fairly good sense of what you're looking at. And he handles the progression of like being at the base of the pyramid and seeing the whole of the pyramid and seeing that it's on the turtle and then seeing that there are thousands of turtles. The only thing I've kind of slightly got a question about is the emphasis between the panels, like the actual like size ratio between them. To me, it's like on page 3 of this, it would be page 3, panel 3. You've got the view kind of down, seeing that it is literally turtles all the way down. And that is kind of getting lost to me relative to the other stuff. I mean, particularly if you're seeing this in like a double page, I kind of worry that that's sort of you've almost, in terms of the story, got this kind of build up of things getting madder and madder and madder. And actually, from the point of view of that page, you kind of peak on the previous panel. And then the one where you actually see see all the turtles is relatively small. And I think by the time I think there are going to be 3 speech balloons on that panel. So by the time you've got all that in, it's going to get a bit kind of cramped and lost. So maybe that's the main criticism I would have of it in terms of the storytelling, is that it peaks a tiny bit too early from the point of view of the story flow to me. But in terms of actually handling all these kind of space relationships between things, he's actually done a really, really good job. And I really love on the final panel with his like Hollow Earth Lizard City. I think he's done a really nice job on that in terms of making it feel like a cavern and making it feel like there's sort of kludged together architecture kind of accommodating the curves of the cavern and so on. So yeah, I think that's for me.
John, what's your take on Carl's interpretation?
I really like his work. His open line style makes his storytelling really easy to follow. He's got a sort of Charles Burns influence going on, I think. Unfortunately, I think his figure work suffers a little bit here and there. He suffers from sort of dwarfism in his figures. I think he could do with drawing the structure of the figures under the clothes first and then clothing them after, so that he doesn't end up with, and also draw through the panel. On page 1, on the second to last panel, you have the classic arm that doesn't really connect to the other bit of the arm shot, which people do all the time with people holding phones, mobile phones, where the arm doesn't really connect to the other arm. And he's done it with the guy who's getting his head caved in with the pickaxe. His arm is a kind of weird floating thing, and it's really kind of ugly the way it overlaps with the following panel. I think his use of imagination is great. His turtles are fantastic. I agree with Matt 100% on that last big shot. It should have been the big money shot with all the turtles. But yeah, and again, but the final shot on the final page is great. His world building, especially on the lizard guys, is excellent. The clothing design. Also, he's one of the few people who actually makes one of the lizards focus your eyes up at the people falling out, down through the hole, so that you actually see them. It took me ages to realize with all the other stories that there were people dropping down through the holes. But even though his little figures are tiny, because you have one of the lizards looking up directly at them, it takes you up to it. So that's a nice thing. There's a few problems with flow, you know, like in the panel before that, the guys are being thrown in left to right, then everybody's looking right to left, then everybody's looking left to right in the last panel. And that happens here and there with his stuff. But overall, love his inking. Grayscale use is wonderful. The figure work could do with a little bit of a kick up the arse. That's me.
Sorry, I couldn't get it to unmute then. Yeah, no, actually, as you were talking,
I to listen to you.
I realised how much you're right. The eye line of that lizard up to the figures as they fall is really nicely done. So that was Carl Sperling's effort. Now let's move on to Chris Simmons, who is next. A bit more of an involved style with this one. Let's start off with Matt. What's your feelings about Chris's work?
Okay, well, what I really like about this is there's a lot of conviction in the figures. I think there's probably a couple of places where he's using photo reference, but for both the both like the figures on the first page and also the turtle as well, there's this real kind of like, you know, sometimes you get a drawing where there's just a kind of like rightness and it really looks like what it's meant to look like. In some ways, it kind of gives me this slight vibe of like early Bolland back when he was doing Judge Dredd and stuff, in terms of having this sort of like solidity to certain things. But where I think I'm slightly worried is just there's a couple of points here where I'm not sure he's quite so strong on the spatial relationships. So it's like the storytelling on that first page is fine, but we end up with the first kind of sight of the pyramid being kind of crushed down into a fairly small panel. And given how little space that's got on it, particularly by the time you put lettering into that panel, I'm not sure it would be terribly clear what you were looking at. The next page 2, where you've got the first panel with the lights, I think he did a slightly better job than Carl of actually showing clearly that they are lights. But again, I think you're going to have to rely on the text to understand that it's not just like part of a structure that's in front of him, that it's actually part of the cosmos. And it's like, it's very easy to write, oh, in the fabric of the cosmos, there are these huge searchlights or whatever, and then you actually have to draw it. But I think there needs to be some kind of other solution to that to just make it clear it looks like it's something quite close to him, you know. And the overview of the pyramid kind of feels a bit claustrophobic. Like maybe you could have just pulled out a little bit. You obviously don't want to see too much, but maybe just pulled out a little bit so we could get at the top of the panel, we could maybe see more. As it is, you've kind of got a bit of think of the bottom of Africa or South America, but I think maybe just pulling out a tiny bit more so that we've got a bit more of the flat earth on top of the panel would give you a clearer idea of what we're looking at. I think I actually quite like the on page 3, the big reveal shot of the turtle, and I think he's got a better balance between the kind of shot of the pyramid on top of the turtle and then the fact that it's turtles all the way down. I'm not sure with this one whether he's done quite as good a job in terms of getting, you can see that it's lots of turtles, but it's not, and you can see that there's the figure there, but I think it takes a minute to sort out that it's that it's actually him on the back of a turtle looking at a cosmos full of other turtles, which again, the whole point is that it's hideously difficult to do, but that is maybe not quite as successful as the other one. The other thing I'd maybe recommend is on that very last panel with the lizard civilization. Again, that's really, I really kind of like the way that he's got the sort of monorail, and he's got the characters and everybody's doing stuff. I think we've kind of lost a little bit the fact that people are falling in there. I can't really see that. And also, what I might be tempted to do with that, especially if it's a cave, would be to maybe simplify some of the background and have it actually drop into full shadow, just so that you could maybe pop those figures on the left-hand side of the panel out a bit. As it is, they're kind of getting lost. And if this was going to go to colour, you'd be able to pop them forward with the colour. But as it is, that panel is risking kind of becoming a little bit of a jumble in terms of there's not much emphasis between foreground and background. So it's like, I think there's certain points where like the involvedness of his style really, really works and really adds to it. And there's maybe just a couple of places where it just needs a little bit more thought in terms of creating clarity, so you can really understand what you're looking at in a specific panel.
John, I want to move on to you. What do you think about Chris's work here?
I pretty much agree with everything Matt just said. I like his work overall, though I think he relies figure-wise too heavily on photo ref. Also, I think his inking can become a little bit too labored, especially on fabrics and things. He just has to put every wrinkle in on the fabric, and I think he could do with just easing back on that a little to declutter his figures. Things like the fourth panel on page 1, where I know what's going on, but only just because it's because he's struggled to find something suitable kind of photo ref to work from, I think. And so he's kind of ad-libbed it a little bit, and it just doesn't work. That figure falling is clumsy and weird and just unclear. He needs to pull back a lot in every panel. I think he's too in. He needs to pull back the camera quite a lot. However, on panel, let me see, what is it? Page 1, page 2. Page 2, the panel 1 and panel 2 is a bit of a brutal switch of angle, and I know obviously he's trying to get that idea of the disconcert, being very disconcerted and sort of flipping, but it's just odd that it's so brutal between panel 1 and panel 2. I think he should have saved the brutality for panel 3, pulled back a bit. The inking on the cloud work around the pyramid is beautiful. I love those clouds, and I wish he would do a bit more sort of naturalistic stuff like that. It almost isn't in keeping with the rest of the artwork. The cloud work on that panel sort of doesn't, sort of almost doesn't fit with the rest of it, but it's very nice. The turtles looking at the guy is good, but it's, like Matt said, completely hard to understand exactly who's where and what's going on. It's a bitch of a story to draw, though. I mean, Chris, you're back. You must hate yourself, Chris.
I was really mad, yeah.
Yeah, you really must loathe yourself with a passion to write that for yourself. The final panel on page 3, where he's going into shock and his brain is shutting down, is probably one of the clearest out of all the 5 or 6 stories that his mind is snapping. But it's sort of one of those, I took a photograph of myself and drew it, and pictures that really annoys me, mainly because it reminds me of the way I used to draw when I was younger. And I kind of hate that sort of thing now, where it looks like a photograph just as somebody snapped it. There's just, and I don't know quite how to put it, but anyway, it's nice though. The change between that panel and the next panel is very obvious. It makes it very obvious the passage of time. A lot of quite a few of the other ones don't kind of get that across. And yeah, the last panel is on the final page is a complete mess. It's just so cluttered. He's tried to cram in too much stuff. He needs to drop a lot of line work out, drop some of that into shadow to pop the figures, like Matt said. Just, there's no need for all that stuff on the cave walls. And yeah, the wee figures falling through are completely lost, especially by that very odd insert panel. I think it's an insert panel, I presume. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, overall, he's solid, but there are problems.
Chris, what's your feelings?
I agree with just about everything they said. Overall, it feels very labored and overwhelming. And I mean, as the guy who drew it himself, I can feel the misery he felt drawing all this shit really comes through to me. And I'm not sure if that's like it all feels very tortured to me. Like there's no, I don't know, it's not an easy read looking at this stuff.
If it doesn't put him off trying to break into comics, just the misery of drawing those 4 pages, well, then he's a strong person there.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of it. The angles he chose are pretty difficult to read. The 1, 2, 3, fourth, that fourth panel where the guy's, his corpse is in the foreground, stuck in the crevasse. It's not. He didn't really get. I'm not really getting that he's wedged into a crack from that. It just looks like he fell off a cliff, rather than is really wedged into the crack. Yeah, his body's supposed to be wedged in the bottom of a crack.
I thought he was falling.
Although I will say, feel free to ignore the script if it doesn't work for you. I ignored myself when I drew it. I moved the last panel of the first page over to the first panel of the second page after I'd already had the script approved. So note to artists, feel free to ignore it if you've got a better solution. Which a beginning artist may not have.
Just advising anarchy, surely. Just that's
right.
Mike, you work for 2000 AD, a magazine that literally is built on anarchy.
That transition at the beginning of page 2 is very difficult. Like that first panel, like it looks like he's inside a Victorian mansion or something with those lights. I guess it looks like he's on, the stage, but I'm not seeing the edge of the earth. Like I really wanted to see the drop off, that there's a flat earth with like the abyss, and I'm not getting any of that. And then that second panel, what a crazy angle to choose. Yeah, it's really weird. It really does not feel like he's looking over the edge of anything. Very strange. I mean, it's a very nice drawing of something, but it's not, doesn't really communicate what we're looking for. The turtle's great. That shot of all the turtles kind of extending into infinity, I feel like he's just drawing the turtles, and I'm not really seeing the flat earth on top of their shells. So that I feel like that's a bit of a cheat, but that to me does look super, super cool. And I mean, the story doesn't really make any sense anyway. So if he wants to drop out a thing to make it look cool, I guess that's fair enough.
That does strike me. There's not a lot of space for lettering.
Oh, that's you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, particularly even on the first page, there's a couple of panels there where I think even the best, the nice panels, I just think the best letterer would struggle to find somewhere to put the caption.
That's good. One thing, a note for artists trying to break in. One thing I do, if I'm not sure how it's going to work, I'll bring it into Photoshop in the thumbnail stage, and I'll do a super rough lettering job myself, just to make sure I'm leaving enough room for all the caption boxes and word balloons and stuff. And I've gotten a pretty good mind for leaving enough room, but I will still, if there's more than a couple boxes, I'll always bring it in just to make sure I'm not screwing myself. So I would definitely advise doing that if you're having trouble with it.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. When I'm working, I actually rough letter everything I do. So there's one way that the lettering will fit on it, even if that's not the way the letterer chooses. It often isn't. But... Sorry.
Well, old letter is just screaming at the screen at the moment. No.
Just good, Matt.
Let's move on to the next entry, which is from Elena Gogu. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This was one of the entries that was coloured and I think we'll start off with Chris on this one. Slightly different style to the other two.
Yeah, very nice. Let's just go back over it again. Yeah, that's very nice. This seems it's a much breezier read than the others. It's a little easier for the mind to take in, I think, because it's fairly open. That corpse in the crevice is great. The panel, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't even count. I guess that's the 5th panel of the bodies that I guess have fallen off the cliff. That doesn't really read to me. I guess with the text there, like, the careless, whatever it says, like the careless, died themselves or something. It's not really coming across to me. And I guess it is kind of a strange tangent with that strange line that cuts between the 4th and 6th panels or whatever. It seems intentional, but I don't think it really achieves anything other than just pulling your eye down before you would want it to. So I would say, don't do that.
It's something that crops up quite a lot in the competition. There seems to sometimes be an aversion to actually using proper gutters between panels, and it can be a flourish, it can be a bit of style, but often those gutters are integral to the storytelling. They allow the eye to flow seamlessly around the page, so leaving them out should really be like a really conscious choice that aids storytelling.
I agree. I mean, I think this was an active choice. I just don't think it worked. I think she did do it on purpose. I just don't, for me, it doesn't, accomplish anything. The second page, I think she's losing the scale a little bit, and obviously the scale of this story is impossible. Like trying to draw one person and the entire world in the same shot. It's based, like, you really have to fake it. And I think, I don't know. I don't think she quite nailed it here. If you follow the arc of the world around, it looks like, it's just the size of a school building, maybe. Like it's really she's not really nailing the scale here. The cameras or lights or whatever, that totally works. I do get him looking over the edge, which is nice. Like I feel like she really captured, she captured the moment, if not the scale I think we're looking for. Pretty nice pyramid. I think we've been spoiled by the insane detail that everyone else is putting into the pyramid, but this is, I can immediately tell exactly what I'm looking at, which is, the goal. Love the transition of panel 1 to 2 on page 3. I think that looks super great. I really get that the clouds are parting, and the expanding the size of the panel really just yanks my eye right down. I understand exactly what I'm looking at. Very cool. Those turtles extending into infinity. That looks great. His eyes are gone when you find out that he's dead the whole time. That's pretty gross. I like that. Everyone else did a perfect like match cut, and she pulled out a little bit and showed that he was dead. That's great. That second panel on the final page, it's a little too tight. I'm not really getting that they're picking up the dead bodies. I'm not really seeing enough of a contrast between the people in the blizzard gas masks or whatever and the bodies they're picking up. That doesn't read easily. And then the shot of them throwing them into the hole needs to be pulled out. For me, I think it should be pulled out a little bit more as well to really immediately sell what's going on. But that final panel is great too. That reads very immediately exactly what I'm looking at. So yeah, very good. I would say, yeah, this is probably an easier read than the other ones, probably maybe just because of the open line. Very nice.
Matt, what's your take on Elena's work here?
I think I've got to agree with most of what Chris said here. I think she could maybe have got away with on page 1 with this kind of irregular sort of weird panel edge thing, if it weren't for the fact that the diagonal you get between, I think it's panels 3 and 4, exactly matches up with the diagonals on the tier below. So it almost looks like you should read that one panel kind of vertically down and off the bottom of the page. I think maybe even offsetting them a bit, or having the bottom tier with the diagonal going like the opposite direction you could still have done something quite kind of dramatic with it, but it wouldn't have had that quite such a weird effect on the storytelling. I was also a little bit thrown by the kind of scale thing. As Chris said, it's like when he comes out there, I mean, that dome's only going to be like 100 feet or so across, and it's supposed to have the whole world in it. And I guess if you've got the idea that it's all an illusion or something, you can kind of go with that as an interpretation. But I think compared to what some of the others managed, one thing I think she's had a bit of trouble with is like conveying that enormous sense of scale. But yeah, I think given what she's done with the scale, I think the kind of transition down to the sort of multiple turtle shot works really well. And I think you would actually have space to get the lettering in on that one, which a lot of people struggle to do. So for once we've actually got this kind of escalation that goes up to the big money shot. Otherwise, I think the only thing I would have added is, on the final page where he's getting chucked into the pit, I think a bit more of a sense of him either moving or him actually being out. You could have used a shadow under him to have them like physically chuck him out over the void or something, just to kind of signal that a bit better. As it is, it kind of looks like he's resting on the edge of the pit with somebody waving the leg at him, which is like, it kind of gets the idea. But and I think there's that last panel to me with the Lizard City. It's like I could have just done with a tiny bit more contrast in that, like in the foreground, either a bit more black or maybe just rather darker colors in the foreground element to really kind of sell the difference between them. She's actually done quite a good job of creating a certain amount of foreground to background separation, but just maybe having an extra layer where the characters at the very front were just a bit darker again to give you this kind of sense of receding depth would I think have made it a lot stronger. But I mean, it just looks beautiful. I really like the kind of open line. I absolutely love the coloring. So yeah, I feel in a lot of ways I'm kind of having to pick at this to find something. But yeah, I think that's the main thing.
John, what's your feelings?
Again, I'm agreeing with Matt and Chris on these. I think her inks and coloring are beautiful, really nice. She's got a bit of a Magnolia thing going on with her work here and there. The problem with and she's a very good artist. If you look at 1, 2, panel 3, you've got that really nice shot of the guy climbing with the intensity in his face. But that's pretty much the only time you really ever see anybody's face for the entire strip. And to that, it leaves me a little bit emotionally detached from the whole story. Because unless the person's dead, you don't see their face. The rest of the time, it's very much just shapes. And, Magnolia is very good at doing that, but still conveying emotion and intensity and feeling, but it's not there with hers. And I mean, Jesus, she's only starting out, so yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I think she maybe needs to sort of put some faces in occasionally, instead of just putting everything into shadow or just knocking it to a shape, but actually try to get some emotion through on faces. There's no the eyes on the final panel of page 3 sort of sell the idea of the shock in the mind snapping, but not quite. So yeah, it's tricky. I mean, and when you're dealing with such a huge scale of things, no wonder that it's tricky to get those faces in and to get that emotion behind it. But I think that's a very important thing that has to be done. Everybody commented on the the build transition, the small panel to the big reveal of the turtles, and I concur. That's fantastic. I love the way she's built that. Again, yeah, that crazy tangent on page 1 is mental. Got to do something about that. Yeah, strong, absolutely strong bit of work. just with flaws, but then so have all of them, and so have most comics. She just needs to iron out a few of these things and just work on a few of those points that everybody's touched on.
Super,
That's
thank
me.
you. So we're going to move on to the next one with about half the time gone. Hernan Gonzalez. Now this is I believe the only one that's been lettered when it was submitted. Very different style to the other ones. I'll come to Chris first on this one.
All right. It's got kind of an 80s black and white sort of feel, which I immediately like. Like it feels very, it feels like something I would read in someone's basement, which I like. Like kind of a messy Xerox sort of look. It almost reminds me of what was that Steve Lieber comic, Whiteout, that had Zipatone all over the place, super messy and splattery and awesome. Yeah, it's got kind of that feel, which is cool. Although it's got that interesting intensity, there's a lot of, I'm having some clarity problems with it. The fourth panel here, the globalists met with tragic accidents. I am having a very hard time really understanding what I'm looking at there. And then the shot of the people falling off the cliff on the next one, I don't know. I think I see the guy falling off. I don't know, it's very difficult to look at, I'm sorry to say. The head caving in panel is cool. The last panel on the page, I wonder if he's had a hard time understanding the script. It looks like he's seeing the outside of the dome rather than seeing the inside of the dome. That's what I'm visually getting out of it. So that's, I don't know. That's and the scale of it's weird. Like it looks like he's like pasted in a photo of like a mountain from like a great distance, and then there's a guy walking up the side of it. So it looks like the guy is a mile tall or something. I don't know. That very strange. Yeah, that panel's not working for me.
John, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I think I agree. I do like this sort of messy, splattery style. It can work really well when it's done well. The storytelling clarity is not there. I think the big turtle shot is poor, unfortunately. He relies on photo ref, I think, and when he can't ref it, it sort of suffers a little. And his figure work is quite stiff, especially if you look at panel, he added a few extra panels. The second to last panel on page 1, there's really no movement behind that pickaxe going into that person. It's kind of Action Man holding pickaxe and strange thing in the foreground that could be a human. Story, yeah. I agree with Chris. There's a few points where I think he hasn't understood the story. The final panel on the very final page is a little bit disappointing too. There's not much there. It's not a very well realized world. The reptile people are a bit dull. It's unfortunately.
There's something that kind of strikes me is that it's like as he moves away from the familiar, the kind of consistency of it unravels a little bit. So the first page where he's mostly dealing with human figures and rocks, I mean, even though some of the panels are a bit difficult to read, it like looks visually quite consistent, and he's actually got this kind of knack for doing scrubby stuff that, I mean, he's either like doing scrubby texture stuff or he's managing to use photocopies of rocks or something. So you're getting this kind of quite nice sort of sense of this kind of snowy, cold, rocky environment. But then when we kind of step out of that, it's like if you compare the rock textures on the first page to the edge of the cliff in the big panel on the second page, it doesn't kind of look like it was done with the same tools and materials. What struck me is that I think he kind of missed a chance in a way to do something very, very simple and effective with the storytelling, which is this big panel on panel 2 where you see the pyramid with the sort of disk of the Earth or the next planet along, I think, from where he's doing. He's got the disk tilted down, but the pyramid kind of dead level onto us. And actually, if he'd kind of tilted that pyramid down a bit to match the sort of disk of the Earth, what you could then have done is done a pull away in the first panel on the next page, which I can't read at all, and then a further pull away on that next panel from a similar angle, and then you would have got to something like this, the third panel on the third page. You'd have actually had like a consistent pullback to the point where you're seeing all the turtles. And as it is, it kind of jumps around a lot. And one of those panels I can't really read. And so it's just like, from the point of view of a kind of visual flow, it's actually quite difficult from this to get this sort of sense of scale and the connection in the way that some of the others did. So unfortunately, it's like, I think there's some quite good stuff going on here that he could work with in terms of a drawing style, but I think there's a lot of stuff in terms of maybe the storytelling and the world building that he needs to kind of go back to the drawing board and spend more time working on to kind of get his game more up to speed.
It is notable how it's something that was brought up in Elena's entry about faces, that you don't actually, all you see of the guy's face is his eyes, an ultimate page. So kind of, having that, not just emotional identification, but also the flow of the storytelling as you follow him through the story is quite, you're relying on the script to be informing the reader about who they're looking at, which, well, not to worry on that one. Well, let's move on from Hernan's to James Newell. Now, again, another what I'd call kind of more traditional 2000 AD style in that A, it's black and white, and B, it's clearly inked. John, let's come to you on this one, because this does take a bit more of a traditional direction in terms of its layouts and the storytelling.
Yeah, I think this one is superb. I get a real heavy metal Herlan vibe from his work. Beautiful inks, textural work is fantastic. I hope he's old. The storytelling is great because he has kept everything fairly contained and confined. Even on the big reveals, he's still kept things in boxes. His turtles and Earth and Flat Earth and Pyramid are superb. I love his turtles. I mean,
they've got a very Mick McMahon.
Yeah. It's got that vibe, hasn't it? And that final shot on the page where the turtle turns and looks at him, and you've got that scale with him in the foreground, which very few people managed, and it works with them drifting off into the background. The thing that doesn't work for me, unfortunately, the one I think is just my one fault with this whole strip, is the panel after that where you see him going into shock, and I don't know, he looks like he's become an old granddad who's having a joke round the fire while watching a show on Saturday evening on the telly. There's nothing there that says my mind is exploding with the cosmic unbelievableness that I'm witnessing. Also, between that shot and the next shot, it's a push for me to realize it's the same person. He probably should have kept the guy's glasses on, and that would have really helped. I don't know why he got rid of the glasses. That's odd, because that's a real marker. But aside from that, everything is really, really good. I love this strip a lot. It possibly needs to pull back on a few panels for lettering, possibly, in fact, probably, especially on the first page where he's added a few more panels in. Has he, Chris? I don't know.
No, I think this is right.
No, that's right. But, there's a couple of panels with, especially in the middle tier, that look a little cluttered, and I would worry about lettering. But the storytelling is fabulous, and you could probably ditch the lettering, you know, because who needs writers anyway? They're just doing the arts, and just get away in the way of the artist doing the good stuff. Yeah, overall, yeah, I'm really impressed with this guy's stuff. I love his inking. I love his figure work. You know, there's a couple of little shaky bits, but there's, I mean, fuck. Anyway, yeah, carry on.
Matt,
His world building at the end is great too.
Yeah, Matt, what's your feelings on this?
Okay, well, I mean, the first thing that strikes me about this is that he's got a look, and he's maintained it consistently over the whole thing. So it's like you're looking at this, and it's like, okay, you know, this is definitely like a guy who knows how he wants to draw stuff, and he's, you know, whether he's drawing guys in parkas climbing up a cliff or like underground Saurian cities or whatever, he's maintained this kind of consistency and this sort of consistent visual feel. There's a couple of little things struck me. Something I think he's done really well that I think most of the others have struggled to do is with the I think it's the first panel on page 2, which is the thing about I was right, the sun isn't real, it's a giant spotlight. He's actually, I think, sold that whole thing about the sun being a sort of spotlight better than a lot of the others in this. I think he's actually come up with a solution to that kind of shows the idea of this, the sun being a sort of artificial object in relation to the dome of the world in a way that most other people haven't really managed to sell. So kudos to him for that. The one bit that kind of jarred with me slightly is it's actually the big panel just below that. I think John's right. I think he needs to pull out a bit and think a little bit about the perspective, because while I can see that we're meant to be looking at a pyramid with the dome sitting on top of it, it's like, in order to get that perspective, the dome would have to be like the dome would have to be like wouldn't be resting level on top of the pyramid. It would actually have to be like really tilted back and almost like slipping off. So and I can see why you would need to do that, because if you didn't from that angle, you would actually have the dome covering most of the pyramid from this angle. But that whole angle kind of needs tweaking or pulling back or something, just so you can kind of get that relationship a little bit better. That did strike me as kind of a bit odd. But again, the sort of whole universe of turtles, I think he's one of the more successful ones in terms of actually getting both like this whole like cosmos of turtles and the guy at the same time, so that you've got this sort of sense of scale and a connection between the character and the universe that he's inhabiting. But I think, again, as John said, the two faces, both the sort of shock face and the frozen one, that's maybe the weakest part, where I think that would need revisiting, and I think you'd actually want to revisit that expression and redo it. I think actually having a character with the frozen glasses on, with like icicles coming off the glasses, would be really great. So that might be worth thinking about. But generally, no, this is a really nice, solid one. And again, even the panel where the bodies are getting chucked into the pit, incredibly simple, but because of both the kind of line of action of the bodies going in and the black and the white, you can just clearly see that you've actually got something being thrown into midair. So yeah, I mean, he's really kind of engaged with some of the stuff that other people have had trouble with.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite panels, that one, Matt. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
very simplicity is sometimes the best.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll shut up.
No. Hey, this panel is all about you talking. Well, not you specifically, but in general. Chris, how do you feel about this one?
Well, it looks absolutely beautiful, like amazingly well drawn. I do think he cheated a little bit. I can tell that he saw the way I handled it, and he kind of based his telling of it on what I'd done. So I mean, I don't know whether to hand out demerits or be flattered. So I think he, I don't know. I think that may have given him some sort of leg up into what my intentions were with, you know, the scale and the angles and stuff, that where other people were, you know, a little confused as to, you know, what I was going for. But I basically agree with, you know, the other guys. Very, very good work, very consistent across, you know, from situation to situation. I absolutely love the first big shot of the turtle. Super, super cool. Like, it really, you know, feels like something cosmic and like super unexpected has happened. Like, I mean, I this is the fifth one we've done, and I, you know, drew the stupid thing myself, but as I turned the page, I still kind of got that feeling. Very, very, very impressive. Yeah, the close-ups of the face, yeah, that's the one real misstep. That's a little goofy. Very easy for an editor to tell you to fix that, though. It's very nice that the easiest thing to fix, you know, is the one thing you did wrong. The throwing the corpses into the pit. I don't understand the point of that weird white oval at the bottom of that panel. To me, that just makes it unnecessarily confusing to look at. I don't quite what that accomplishes. And then the weird on the big final panel. What is that gray doing there for? Nowhere else in the whole story is there, you know, is there gray. That's all I can look at. And I'm sure if it were colored, you know, you wouldn't worry about it. But I personally can't look at anything else other than that gray and just wonder what's it doing there for. I don't know. I'm being very, very picky. This is spectacular work.
Fantastic. So on to our final entry, which is Moro Bueno. Hope I pronounced that correctly. And let's go with Matt to begin on this one.
Okay. Well, looking through this, there's the thing that struck me when I looked at this is like there's a lot of really, really good stuff in it, but it's like the execution just isn't quite catching up to the ideas at times. The first page, I think particularly on the first page, it's not so bad on the rest of it. Some of the rendering is kind of a wee bit heavy-handed. Like if you've got this kind of Arctic waste in the first panel, you're kind of losing the figures because the inking on the hills is so heavy. And it's kind of a difficult balance to make when you're doing this, but sometimes it just pays when you've got a very simple background to not be afraid to just use a few very simple lines and let it just kind of fall into the background. I like stuff like in the third panel, the way that the guy is sort of reaching up to pull himself up, and you've actually got just kind of the white actually cutting his arm off, although I think maybe a bit of the rendering on the cloth of his clothing is a bit kind of heavy and labored. It's actually a lot nicer on the three panels towards the bottom there, especially the back in the next tier down, which would be like panel 6. The rendering on the back of the guy's jacket as he's lying facing away from us, dead in the snow, is actually much nicer. The figures can sometimes be a tiny little bit attenuated, but I don't think that's sort of too beyond the pale. What strikes me again in this is I don't know if he's either not quite understood the script or gone for the sort of the whole world is a holodeck approach, but the dome seems like way too small.
So I'm surprised that somebody who's so into their Doctor Who just doesn't assume it's some kind of TARDIS.
Yes. And actually, I think my prime example of something where I love the concept, but I think the execution needs a bit more, is where are we? Page 3, like the big reveal shot with the world of turtles. I absolutely love the way that you've got this kind of like huge formation of turtles in rows. But it's just like looking at the perspective on the turtle and the pyramid and the head. It's like the head is a bit too big. So it kind of starts to look a bit comical, but also the pyramid's kind of shifted over, like the center of the pyramid is actually underneath the turtle's right side from there. And given how big it's supposed to be, I don't know that it would have, I think it wouldn't have hurt to actually have the body be much bigger and the flipper actually maybe extend out and be cut off by the panel. That would kind of really have given you a sort of sense of scale. So it's like, I actually love that sort of concept, that way of expressing it. And I think against the guy's sort of horrified expression there, that kind of, that does actually kind of work. But it's just the actual execution of it. There's maybe just a couple of little tweaks you'd need to really pull that off. As it is, it's kind of like a brilliant idea, but it's not quite gelling when it comes to the execution of it. And the final thing is, I think this last panel with the reptile city it's a wee bit of a letdown, especially after the kind of that very ambitious turtle panel, in the way that it's very kind of like diagrammatic. It's like everything is sort of like flat on and square, and the reptile guy's just sort of pointing at us and sticking his tongue out. So it's kind of like, it's very kind of like front on, side on, with not much of a sense of being in 3D space, in a way that that turtle panel is really kind of like, you're really kind of going for this kind of like mind expanding perspective view. So I think there's a tiny bit of like problem of sort of like consistency in terms of that. It's like, generally speaking, I mean, I think he's done a reasonably good job of keeping the character in sort of in frame, particularly in the sort of big scale things. You can at least see him, although it's sometimes hard to see the face. But I mean, that's kind of a problem with it. Again, maybe one thing's that's sort of missing from that really big panel again would just be some sense of where the character is in it. Like if there's another tier of turtles underneath this one and he's standing on a balcony just sort of looking up at the one that's speaking to him or something, it would give kind of more of a connection. So it's like, it seems to me like there's a lot of really good stuff in here, but it's just not kind of quite clicking yet. It just needs a little bit more work.
Thanks, Matt. John, what's your feelings about this?
Yeah, this is a solid story, solid art, but it does suffer with all of those things that Matt just said. I think his figure work veers from being really solid, page 1, panel 2, those little figures trudging up the hill, superb. Really love them, really feel the weight on them and the effort they're having to put in. And then you go to the panel next to it, and the arms crap and the hands, he's only got 3 fingers, which is weird. His head's too big for his body, and it's very awkward looking. You know, and again, he should have pulled back on that panel too, to just give a bit more scale. And then you go to the 3rd tier, and it's superb. Again, that final panel that Matt was touching on, with the guy walking away with a pickaxe in it, I really liked that approach that he took to that bit. Instead of showing the violence, showing the after effect of the violence. I think he's the only one who tried that. And then I mean, it's a story of each tier being sort of, yeah, the following tier is weird. The figure on the left hand side looks like a woman's figure, not an old guy with a beard. Then you've got the old guy with the beard lifting up his goggles, and he's got these weird dwarf arms. This is a case of drawing through the panel again, where you don't just try to just draw what's in the panel, but if stuff is going off the panel, draw it too, so that you see how everything connects to everything and what scale everything should be in relation to it, because his arm is weirdly tiny. But the emotion on the faces are great. The dome thing is odd, but then it's a very tricky thing to do. I see what he's tried to get that sun being projected, and has succeeded better than a lot. I I think the guy who did the completely upside down panel of the guy looking over the edge could have learnt something from this panel where he's got him looking over the edge. Still maybe a bit of a brutal sort of upside down shot, maybe a little bit less of the just tipping the whole thing upside down. The work on the pyramid is superb. All that Mebius tentacly stuff looks great, and the clouds, that all looks great again. I love that little sequence with the turtle's eye opening, just that slow reveal of the eye opening. What Matt said about the big money shot, which is great, but Matt said it exactly right. It's just you don't connect between the guy and the turtle talking to him. It's weird that he just made all the pyramids off center. That's just odd. Why? I mean, it deliberately has done it. You know why? It just looks odd and unbalanced. The emotion on the guy's face as his mind snaps is great. The bit where the guys are turfing the dead bodies down the pit works. And I actually really like that clever little conceit he's done where he's got the hole and then you've got the tube underneath it, and that's connected. And that's the bit that works. And then you've got this strange Victorian melodrama with lizards playing out underneath, which is weird because everything's so cosmic and futuristic and sort of organic. And then you go to this weird sort of very Victorian looking underground city, which just doesn't work at all. It's very odd, that last panel. I mean, it's beautifully done and in a different story setting would have been great, but it's odd. And that the lizard kind of just looking straight out at the reader at the end is odd as well. I mean, maybe it works with the script. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to for me. But I think overall, he's got a ton of good points. His consistency is just, he's a little bit all over the shop with his consistency at the moment. And that'll come with time as he figures things out. But yeah, and just works on his figure work and little bits of storytelling. As I said before, I would hate to have drawn this strip and would be spitting blood at the writer. So, to get introduced to this world of drawing comics through this story, yeah, I might be packing shelves in Tesco's if I'd got that.
Well, I think the final word should go to the artist who clearly hates himself for writing this in the first place.
Right. I could tell that he also based his stuff on my layouts. Fair play, I guess. Super ambitious, and it's kind of stylistically all over the place. But I mean, just there's so many things he nails in just an amazing way that I'm very excited about this. Love that panel of the corpse wedged into the crevice. It's awesome. Walking away from the dead body rather than showing the actual impact itself. Super clever. I really like the panel of him getting over the top of the cliff and seeing the doorway. I love that shot. It really feels like he's really moving. I don't think he looks like a woman at all. John McCrea, you idiot. I think that looks great.
I'll take that. I am an idiot, but obviously you and I have got different idea about women, and that's beautiful. That makes the world go round.
That close-up is definitely weird. He's got like a super short forearm or something. Very that shot doesn't quite work. I love the expression on the face, but the way the elbow works is not right at all. If you just kind of extended that forearm off the end of the page and forgot about it, I think it would be great. I think you could totally get away with that. The scale of the dome on the second page is really weird. But the thing that really bothers me about it is that the scale doesn't carry through to the fourth panel where you pull out and see the pyramid. If you kept that scale consistent, you could see the guy, crouching down and really looking over the edge of it. And you really make a meal of the whole thing, and I think that would have worked great. I'm also a little annoyed at the third panel here floating. The black of that panel goes right into the black of the previous panel, and it just kind of, you can make that work, but here I think it's just the whole story is so confusing that this is just one more thing to be like, what am I even looking at? So that's fine to do in another case, I guess. Oh, there's that one teeny little corner poking into that light. Very odd. Yeah.
Oh,
I understand why you
didn't
did it, but
notice
maybe
that.
not.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, but I love all these crazy tentacles and stuff on the big panel. Kind of reminds me. I mean, you said Mobius, kind of Alex Nino sort of thing, or maybe
Sure.
I'm seeing some P. Craig Russell. Maybe this stuff is really cool, and that sequence of the eye opening, awesome. Yeah, obviously that wasn't in the script at all. I love how he's just really taking it and running with it. I think that's awesome. Really looks cool. It's a bummer how big that turtle's head is. It's so weird because the rest of it looks like absolutely amazing, and then you just got this giant cartoon head on the top. Very strange. And the pyramid being off kilter from the turtles, it is a very, I don't know. I don't believe that's a choice. I feel like that's a mistake that he just kept made 30 times or whatever. I don't know. It's very odd. But yeah, that his look of shock in the close up is great. But yeah, then I agree with that final shot of the Hollow Earth. It doesn't feel like a big Hollow Earth at all. It just feels like a factory that happens to be 10 feet below the surface of Antarctica or whatever. Like, I'm not getting that big cosmic scale to it at all. Very nicely drawn for another story, but I don't think it works here. But overall, super ambitious, very impressive. I think the next thing he does is going to be even better.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for going through those entries. Now, we're all going to go away, and the judges are going to confer about which of the entries is going to win the prize of actual paid work for 2000 AD. So we shall be back in a moment. So the panel have deliberated long and hard, and the discussion was brutal. There were insults thrown, plates smashed, all sorts. But I am very pleased to announce that the winner of the 2020 Thought Bubble 2000 AD Talent Search is James Newell. Congratulations to him. He's going to get paid work in 2000 AD. Now, normally we'd have a big audience all clapping and cheering, but not on this.
Woo, 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 woo. Woo, 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 woo. Go, James!
You'll have to make do. So, first off, thank you to everyone who submitted entries for this competition. We had more than 50 entries, which is helped by the fact it was online, but that's the most we've ever had submit entries to the Artistic Talent Search. So thank you to every single one of them. I'm sorry to all of you who didn't get through on the shortlist. Congratulations to those who did. I hope you found the advice that you've received from the artists here helpful, and that you'll be submitting again in the future. Thank you so much indeed to Matt and to John and to Chris for their sage advice about these entries into the competition. And hopefully next year we'll see you all in Harrogate for Thought Bubble 2021. But until then, it's thank you from me, and thank you from John, Matt and Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.